Police say they were called to the hospital on July 1 at about midnight by staff who said they'd received threatening telephone calls from Miller claiming he had a shotgun and was planning to shoot them all. On arrival, police say Miller ignored police instructions, went back to his car and then approached them with a 15-centimetre knife. They say he came at one officer and a shot was fired which injured Miller. However, he kept coming, approaching another officer who'd fallen to the ground. He was then shot again. Despite immediate medical attention at the hospital, Miller died at about 3 a.m. His wife Donna, who was being treated at the hospital for injuries received during a domestic dispute on that night, was in court today. About 40 statements were tendered by police, witnesses and medical experts. A key witness was Dr. Johan Duflo, who performed the post-mortem. He told the court samples of blood and tissue taken from Miller indicated the presence of the active ingredients of cannabis as well as alcohol and methadone. He also said Miller had hepatitis C. Dr. Duflo told the court that Miller had suffered 3 significant injuries: a bullet wound to the upper left thigh, a possible ricochet wound to his right thigh, and another bullet wound passing downwards through his chest, which he said was the fatal injury. The doctor was questioned at length by counsel representing both police and Miller's relatives over the deceased's ability to move with leg wounds and his mental state. Dr. Duflo conceded that the dead man could have been kneeling at the time he was shot, but said it was equally possible that he was lunging forward. The inquest continues tomorrow. The inquest heard evidence from a nurse on duty at Wallsend Hospital in July last year when Miller was shot. Sister Gundula Lepchke said Miller's wife Donna had attended the casualty section with a cut over her left eye after a domestic dispute. The sister said she'd answered a telephone call from Miller, who had threatened to come into the hospital and shoot them all. She'd then alerted security staff. The doctor on duty that night had also given evidence that she had treated Miller after he was shot by police. She said the hospital was well equipped to deal with what had occurred. Police officers allegedly involved in the shooting were at the court today. They weren't required to give evidence. Although a date hasn't been set, Coroner Jeff Brown said it would be at least August before the coronial inquest could resume. It's estimated that 5 days at least will need to be set aside for the hearing. The coroner recommended that Miller's immediate relatives continue to have legal representation at the inquest in view of certain statements made by witnesses concerning them. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
With the Top Gun sitting on the green's edge and a bumper home crowd, Bobby Oliver from Cohiba and Doug Howard from Waratah took on Stockton's Phil Thorogood and Ross Ball from Merriweather for a crack at the $4,000 in prize money. The pairs were battling out 21 ends of tactics after nearly a week of competition. Oliver, a local policeman, and partner Howard collared the competition, winning 23-19.
It was a day for the Fords and David Steptoe made his presence felt early with a big hit. But it was Jeff Rock who gave Charlestown Brambles first blood with a fine penalty goal. But then disaster. As from the kick-off, Andrew Walker returned the ball to the Toronto line, but an error saw the Scorpions grab the ball and immediately attacked with Hollis drawing the defence to him. He slipped a nice pass to Brett Ryder and Toronto had turned defence into points. Again, the forwards of the Green and Golds were doing the heavy work, and when the backs fired, it was inevitable that Toronto had to score through Crawford, Frendo, and finally Paul Rees, who touched down in the corner. 2 minutes later, the Scorpions were in again. With the Charlestown defence not able to put their man on the deck, Mal Graham was able to stand for an eternity until Glenn Frendo loomed up. He accepted the pass, and he was in next to the posts. Frendo then saved a certain try as Rock made a good break down the left flank, and Frendo picked him off and pushed him into touch. But Charlestown were rewarded just before half-time when winger Amos Simons, who had a good all-round match, scored in the corner. And at half-time it was 16-6 in favour of Toronto. The second half was all defence and mistakes, and Big David Steptoe put the issue beyond doubt when he barged his way over from dummy half and the Scorpions were home. Big Stormman Norman Taylor was too strong early on for the Falcons. And veteran Chuck Harmison was having a picnic. Time by 21 at half-time, the Falcons didn't seem to have any answers and the lead could have been greater except for Al Green. Again and again the Hawks attacked, all of their players were on target. Going into the final 12 minutes, Kendrick continued to rip the Falcons apart. And to make matters worse, the Falcons just couldn't do a thing right and made mistake after mistake to hand the Illawarra Hawks an easy victory. Final score, Illawarra 139, Newcastle 105.
Regular street patrols were beefed up this weekend with police reinforcements from the Highway Patrol and Licensing Branch. 38 underage drinking infringements were served on hoteliers and young people. There were also 17 arrests and 24 charges for offensive behaviour. According to police, the statistics are disturbing concerning teenage alcohol abuse.
Yes, it is disturbing. So one of the problems we do face is these young fellas that have enormous amount of drink just go out of control. Can't control the amount of intoxicating liquor that they consume, and therefore they do stupid things.
It's a problem being brought home in an advertising campaign. The police won't be letting up on their efforts to protect teenagers from themselves.
The message has just got to be continually relayed and continually relayed until people do get the message.
Meanwhile, a 22-year-old Adamstown man has been charged with assault after a vicious attack on a man outside an Islington hotel early this morning. The victim is in a serious condition in hospital. Mayfield police were called to the brawl at 3:30 and inquiries are continuing. The refined racing yachts have been unceremoniously loaded as deck cargo on the Greek freighter Comet. The slick wing-keeled hulls valued at about $500,000 each, were the stars of a feature film shot in Fremantle, one-time home of the America's Cup Challenge. Occupying valuable deck space, they've crossed the Pacific Ocean 4 times during the course of filming. The ship's crew have taken a shine to the sleek yachts, and the Greek captain delights in telling the inquisitive that he and his first officer take them for a quick race in each port they visit. Almost 100 competitors rolled up for a shot at $10,000 prize money. Locals pinned down the contest from the outset, with Mayfield's Sharon McLeish in top form. Averaging $1.99, she slipped to first place ahead of Sydney's Jenny Burton and state number 1 Chris Ruffley from the home club. Local Robert Thompson averaged a neck-and-neck $2.10 to win second place in the men's just behind Sydney's Chris Batson. In a strong junior section, Greg Kotiakis, Justin McKinney and AJ Foxford showed they'd be a force to be reckoned with in the not-too-distant future. The state's under-21 hockey hotshots clashed at the Newcastle International Hockey Centre. South East Metro proved too strong for the Newcastle side, with Alison Anon pushing through the defence for 2 quick deciding goals early in the second half. It's the first time the state championship has been held at the centre, its synthetic fields paying off after the rain.
For more than a year, part-time students at Newcastle University have been pushing for a differential fee structure. They want to pay $120 a year in general service charges, half of what they're currently charged.
Most part-time students are either family people or they're working and they don't get the time to be at university for full-time. And we're looking at a subject here where if you're working all the time, you don't get time to use all the services.
Gabriella Den Hollander has been at university for 5 years, completing a Bachelor of Social Welfare degree. As a part-time student, she believes the fee system is unfair.
One of the most difficult things for me about coming here is that I have so little time to actually use the facilities here. I have family responsibilities, I have a job, and I know that there are a lot of other students in the same situation as I am who have to pay the full fee, and yet they don't really get the use of the facilities that are here.
Although the Student Representative Council is in favour of introducing different fees for part-timers, the other two student unions aren't so sure. The reduction could cut funding to them by 14%.
You're looking at it, it's something like about $400,000. It's going to reduce the fees paid by students if it goes ahead.
The split fee still has to get University Council approval, but so far it's been viewed favourably by most students.
Police say Charlie Joseph Pappalardo of Burrigal was driving his late model sedan along the main road between Toronto and Morisset at about 7:30 when he lost control of his vehicle. His car slid onto the wrong side of the road and into the path of an oncoming four-wheel drive. Mr. Pappalardo died instantly. Today's fatality follows a crash in Lambton yesterday in which 41-year-old Peter Murnane of Wallsend died instantly when his sedan hit a power pole in Newcastle Road.
Those who survived yesterday's elimination round took to the Merewether course today to decide the issue. Gail Gannon was one of 4 joint leaders on 81 and her form had only improved overnight. But if she was good, Carolyn Pawley was even better. This putt for birdie on the 17th was indicative of a great round of 74, enough to claim the crown by a comfortable margin of 3 strokes. Meanwhile, at Katara, some of the country's best bowlers were contesting day 1 of the club's 15th annual Prestige Triples. 28 teams will play 6 games apiece over 3 days to decide who gets the lion's share of the $7,000 on offer. Early favourites include Australian rep Ian Schubach's side and today's big winners, headed by a typically enthusiastic Sam Laguza. And for those who like the same surface and uniform but a different game, there was always the first annual National Park Croquet Tournament. The mallets were being wielded without a hint of mercy as some of the state's top players went through their rather dignified paces in today's early rounds. To many, the game is a ball of confusion, but for those game enough to venture onto the green, it's just plain frustrating. Bruce Mackenzie, NBN News.
Saturday's referendum deals with several changes to some rules regarding the makeup of the state's upper house, the Legislative Council. The government will ask the people to reduce the council's membership from 45 to 42. If approved, Judy Jenkins, Gordon Ibbott and Murray Bignold will lose their seats. The government is also attempting to reduce council members' term of office from 12 to 8 years and replace the current method of filling casual vacancies, where the seat goes to the next person on the ticket, with the federal Senate system, under which parties nominate a replacement member. So the government is actually asking us 3 questions, but if you look at the referendum ballot paper, there's only one. It makes you wonder what option that leaves voters when they agree with one part of the question but not another.
Last night's meeting at Warners Bay Primary School was called by environmental group Urge to give local residents the chance to hear the stance being taken on environmental issues by the area's 15 candidates. While the future of Green Point is obviously one of the hottest local issues in Saturday's election, pollution, siltation and erosion of the lake are still very much in people's minds. Other topics raised by candidates included Swansea Channel, the Foreshore Park and the monitoring of industrial pollution. The night did not go without conflict. As expected, independent member for Swansea and Mayor Ivan Welsh attacked Urge for their involvement in lake issues. However, independent candidate for Lake Macquarie and member of Urge John Selway spoke out.
The problem with Urge is that it doesn't agree with the Mayor. That's the problem with Urge.
Under the cover of smoke bombs, the heavily armed troops took control of the main street. But local residents weren't too perturbed. The whole exercise a publicity stunt for Singleton's Crazy Day sale. The plan is to bring shoppers back into the town, retailers offering special deals. Thousands of people took advantage of the bargains, some so keen they'd come on bus trips from Cessnock and Branxton.
With the high cost of buying land and building a home near the city becoming prohibitive, many have opted for distant subdivisions or the increasingly popular relocatable style of home. The Lake Macquarie City Council encouraged one developer to come up with an alternative. Palm Court is a paved cul-de-sac cluster of 13 homes, each with a separate title and backyard. It occupies about the same space needed for 4 or 5 regular-sized blocks. The cost of development approval, construction and connection to services is greatly reduced. Basic houses sell from $110,000 to $170,000. Mary and Alan Tuvey sold the family home after raising 5 children and were looking for a no-fuss home for their retirement.
We're very, very pleased with it. We think it's just what we wanted.
Well, you could say virtually maintenance free for me now. Where it used to take me, as I said, 7 days a week, here it'll take me maybe an hour once a week, and the rest of the time's myself to relax.
Governor Peter Sinclair was the guest speaker at today's annual Legacy Appreciation Dinner. No stranger to Newcastle, the Governor explained his special affiliation with the area.
Newcastle is our city, so to speak. I visited here as a boy in ships of the Newcastle and Hunter River Steamship Company, of which my father was manager for many years, and later I had the great pleasure to come back here in Navy ships that I had the honour to command.
Returning in yet another capacity today, he praised the efforts of local school students and the countless others who helped raise more than $95,000 for Legacy last year. With the number of war widows growing, the Governor maintained Legacy is as relevant today as it was after World War I and II.
Now, it would be nice to be able to say that the circumstances which gave rise to Legacy will not occur again. However, regrettable though it may be, the world is a long way from devising a way to make conflict obsolete.
The faces of the students in Ralph Snowball's early portrait of life at Merewether Public School are not all that different from the young faces at the school today. But uniforms and classes have changed dramatically in the last 100 years. To highlight those changes, students and teachers wore fancy dress, some in the style of the late 19th century, others guessing what uniforms might be like in another 100 years. Eric Stallard started the school in 1907, and he can still remember how it looked all those years ago.
Oh, it's different altogether today. Different altogether. There was no houses on the other side, there was no houses out there. Headmaster's house was next door to the school, but that's all there were. And that goes back a long, long way.
He also vividly recalls his first day.
We all did a little drill exercise. And I lost my pluck and I run home.
Did you come back?
Yes, the girls brought me back at lunchtime, and that's how I started on my first day at the Glebe School here.
Minister for School Education Virginia Chadwick unveiled the centenary plaque, and past students and teachers of all ages joined in for the chorus of a very patriotic song, showing the spirit of the old school is alive and well 100 years on.